What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the High PSI Performance channel. I'm JD and that's John. So this morning what we got going on, you guys probably recognize this car. It's the Mazda Speed 3 we've been working on several different times. Somewhere back in the videos you'll see it. But anyways, today it is here for the Cork Sport exhaust. It finally came in. Customer's been waiting like months for this thing. It's been on back order, but it is finally in. So we'll be able to finally, you remember we did the front mount on this thing and gauges and blow off valves and all that fun stuff. Now we'll be able to get the wideband put in because the new downpipe has the provision. We could have welded in a bung at any time, but the customer wanted to wait. So we'll be able to connect the wideband finally. I think we also have a skid plate that's going on the bottom of this thing too. It's lowered, so he wants to kind of protect the bottom as much as he can. You know, the roads out here ever since we had our little winter storm has been pretty rough. Let's go ahead and get after that. Also, side note, this weekend John and I pulled the Grandma motor and took it all the way down. Not all the way down, it's a short block. So gonna load it up at some point today, take it over to the machine shop, and Shannon and I are gonna start discussing what we're gonna do to make this block more bulletproof. I do have an Isky O-ring kit for it, fire ring kit, so we'll be doing that. Mains, rod bearings, and some new piston rings. So we're gonna tear the motor down, freshen it up, O-ring it, deck the block, deck the head. Actually, I gotta fix 2 cylinder heads, and then take them over there and we'll machine them and get the gremlin back together. So that's what we got kicking around this Monday morning. Let's get after it. As you can see, guys, I got the system pretty much unboxed. I'm gonna leave everything in wrappers until it's time for install. We don't want to scratch anything up, but it's like everything's here. It looks nice. It's a dual exit system, and it is cabin. So to give you guys an update, little Chevy Silverado out here did a calibration on the wheel and tire size. You know, you see those tires was bald. One of the dealerships, I'm assuming it had some other parts. Customer took all the parts off and all that stuff was off. He'd be cruising. He said he'd be going 100 some mile an hour, and he's going 70. So got all that squared away. Now the speedo is reading properly on that one. And while I've been doing that, John has been pumping away on the Mazda, and he is about got the system wrapped up. So he's got the downpipe on. He's got to put the O2s on. He's putting the bolts on it and tidying this thing up. So got the covering on back here, keeping it all nice. But it's all coming together, looking good. John's got mail. So I wanted to take a quick second to show you guys this Cork Sport skid plate. It's all installed. Pretty quick and simple, easy install. Some rubber bushings, and then it clamps into the back K-member, and then there's pre-existing bowl holes, and everything just pops in there and then gets tightened up. But super clean, looks good, fits like OEM. And then as you can see, the exhaust is all unwrapped and done. Looks great. So guys, we are moving on with our next project. We got this 5.7 Hemi that's about to get a cam, torque converter, and some other stuff, wicker bill. But our 240 that's been sitting for a while, Ashton got the ECU repaired on it, and it's on the dyno, and we're making some tugs. So I'll show you guys the pull real quick. So as you guys can see, making some pretty healthy numbers for a relatively stock car. So I'm going to help Ashton finish wrapping this tune up so he can get this thing on back to the shop. It's been sitting for way too long. And John has gotten started. It looks like he's getting the exhaust down. I think He's attacking the converter first. Is that... Yep, he shook his head. That means yes. So our day is coming to a close. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Well, as we power on through our week, we're gonna turn it up on a Tuesday. No? Yeah. Gotta have fun in the shop. Anyways, I showed you guys yesterday this Challenger 5.7 that is getting a torque converter and a camshaft. So our friends at Texas Speed sent us over a cam kit, which is right here, going through that. And then we have ourselves a nice Circle D Specialties torque converter. We've been sitting on these parts for a little while because we were waiting on our cam, but we finally got our cam in. So John is, like I said yesterday, I believe, working on tackling the trans. In the meantime, we also have Brian's Pro Charged billet motor whip in here. It is getting an alternator. His alternator has finally crapped out on him. So, about to get crack-a-lacking. I'm going to pull the coolant out of this thing, so that way we can get this overflow reservoir right here off. Well, it's not an overflow reservoir, it's the expansion chamber for the coolant. So we're going to pull that off to gain room to get the alternator, pop that joker up out of the top. So we're going to get started on that. And then Forrest's car, the yellow SRT4, John test drove that the other day, and I think we have an oil leak somewhere. So we're going to find out where that oil leak is, get that fixed before it leaves. It came in for the exhaust manifold gasket and a timing belt, and then we also ended up doing a clutch, the throttle bearing, clutch fork, and the pivot ball. Anyways, so we got those components changed, but we want to make sure everything's spot on before the car leaves. So I'm going to pull that car in here in a little bit too. We're going to top the transmission off with oil and figure out where that oil leak is. And just like that, our alternator is out. Got a new one on the way, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull in the next project and get started on that while I wait for it. So in the meantime, while we waited for the starter, I went ahead and pulled the S10 and got the oil pressure switch changed out on it. It was leaking. And I think I showed you guys last week, we did the spark plug wires, built wires for it. The other ones were built too short, and two of them were touching the exhaust manifold, and you know what happens when that happens. But you can hear it. She's sounding pretty good. Rev her up a little bit. Not too shabby. So this morning, as we've been rolling on through our week, we wanted to address some of the cars that were almost 100% ready to go. We just wanted to test drive and double check the cars again before they left. And as you've seen last week, I think John did the wheel bearing and the lower control arm and the clutch on this car. And so this morning went to take it out for a test drive, and I noticed car drove great, but it had no boost. And so John hooked a pressure tester up to it, and when you add pressure, go ahead and hit it. I don't know how well you guys can see down here. If you look right there, you can see there's a crack on the intercooler core where it mounts to the chassis of the car. It's cracked. So we're going to give Forrest a buzz. We're going to see if he wants to get it repaired. I'm sure he does. So we'll pull this front bumper, pull the intercooler, and I'll take it over to the table and weld the intercooler back shut. So stand by for that. Unfortunately, guys, the last thing I showed you on Forrest, we found a charge pipe, the one that goes in on the passenger side of the intercooler. Wasn't on all the way. Must have missed it when, well, it was on there, but the clamp was like half on, half off. Must have missed it when we were doing the timing belt and all that stuff. So got it resolved. Car's boosted now, so that one's out of here. Next project, we've got this 2015 Challenger 5.7 with a manual. It is getting a set of BBK long tubes, mid pipes, don't know if they're catted or not, and a custom tune. And then we also have this Camaro in today. Somehow, you know, on the front timing cover on this year model has the VVT, and so the wiring going to the VVT, one of the wires got cut or touched the belt, something, I don't know. Customer's out of Colorado, but one of the wires is cut on it, so we're gonna be replacing that harness, and then we'll finish diagging. We know that that's a problem, so we're gonna address that first, and then find out why else the check engine light is on, or that may be the reason why the check engine light's on. But we have, just in case you guys don't know what I'm talking about, this harness right here. This bolts like this to the front of the engine for the crank position sensor and the cam position sensor. So we're gonna get that replaced, and then that should wrap that one up. And we're gonna dyno pull, do some dyno pulls on this, get a baseline before we tear it down. So let's get this car strapped down, make some pulls on it, see where it's at before we start tearing it down. Alright guys, so I had to wrap up a few things, but we are finally ready to make our baseline numbers on our 15 Challenger. So I'm gonna go ahead and set you guys down. We'll go ahead and make 3 pulls, get our horsepower and torque numbers, and then we'll get that thing put on the rack and get those long tube headers installed and do a little custom tune. Rolling on through our week, we've gotten started on our header job on our Challenger, and John just unboxed the BBK long tubes that are going on it. And this is kind of one of the things I'll be talking about with the lesser quality headers, is you know, this coating on this BBK, and just look at it, just right out of the box, just the poor packaging, it's all scratched up. It's just subpar, but they'll fit and they'll work. But that's why we prefer Texas Speed and Cooks, because a little bit better quality. But this customer did go above and beyond, knowing that, and we are not using the BBK gaskets that came with it. He got some aftermarket O2 extensions, which are needed, and then he also got a set of Cooks gaskets, which are much better quality. Let's see, Cooks gaskets. So we're gonna go ahead and carry on and get these jokers on the car. And just like that, John is wrapping up the long tube install. So we got the BBKs installed with the catted mid pipes. The rest of the exhaust, the resignators or mid muffler, whatever you guys want to call these, have been deleted. And no rear muffler. So should sound pretty healthy still, even though it's catted. And then got a surprise one for you. Bam! So this is a 1964 Buick LeSabre station wagon with, you guessed it, LS swap on spray. Well, it's not quite on spray yet, so it's an LS swap. We're going to be tuning tomorrow. I'm going to move it forward. Can't close the door. She's a long one. As far as the nitrous is concerned, we're going to hold off on that because the guy that did this install looks like he bought a nitrous kit and then just installed it. And didn't get window switch, mini controller, NHRI valve, blow down tube, bottle warmer, you name it. The kit's lacking. And right now it's currently set up on a wide open throttle switch. So we don't like it that. We like a little bit more safeguard. We want it to only kick on at the right times and right RPM. So we talked to the customer and we're going to be ordering probably a nitrous outlet WinMax for it and a few of the other missing components and get all that stuff wired in. But obviously we're not going to be able to knock that out tomorrow, plus we don't have the parts in. So we're just going to go ahead and tune it, naturally aspirated, and then go from there. As we power on through our Friday, John is got the cam installed, the new lifters installed, the MVS delete plugs are installed, motor's timed, heads are cleaned up, valve springs are put on the heads, and John is putting the alternator back on, and then he'll be putting the heads back on this thing. So hopefully we may fire this up today. Don't know. Still got a few other things kicking around. I pulled the 64 wagon off the dyno. Y'all just seen pulls on that because it needs some more work. So it's been to 2 other shops. One shop did the swap. That shop couldn't get it running. Another shop. Long story short, it still needs some more stuff done to it. So I stopped tuning on it, because some of those things are going to affect the tuning when we make the change. So it needs some nitrous stuff redone. The motor needs steam ports put on it. The idle air control valve isn't working. I'd like to do a different intake on it. Quite a few changes. And then I think we got some issues with the transmission too. I'm going to go drive it now that I pulled it off the dyno, and we'll go from there on that. So since the dyno is now free, boom, we've got our 15 Challenger on here that we just did the BBK long tubes on. So I'm gonna go ahead and I started strapping this thing down, still gotta do the back. Go ahead and strap this thing down, and we'll see what kind of power it makes. So guys, I'm gonna close out this video here. We finished up the tune on the Challenger, and take you over here to the screen to show you guys the kind of progression and what it came in making and then what it's making now. So the top 3 runs here our wooded baseline, and then right here is tuning. As you can see, it revs out a little further now too. So customer will be super excited on that. Also, I spoke with the customer on his 64, and we're going to be adding a whole bunch of goodies, changing and fixing some things that we don't particularly like, and getting this joker wrapped up as well too. So far it's close to 400 wheel, but after we get things finished up and then get the nitrous working, hopefully it's making 500 wheel. So we'll see, but that's gonna do it for this episode, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace.